Hello friends, this is Granny's GodPod at number 98, Sarah, the wife of Abraham. First, a little bit of housekeeping. I would love to reach 100 subscribers by Granny's GodPod number 100, so I just need a few more lovely people to subscribe. If you can add anyone you know, I would be extremely grateful. Now for this GodPod, I will refer to both Sarah and Abraham by their God-given names. Sarah is called the daughter-in-law of Terah in Genesis 11:3. She is married to Terah's son Abraham, who comes from the line of Noah's son Shem. In Genesis 20, Abraham explains that Sarah is his wife's sister, having the same father but a different mother. Following the custom of his Hebrew ancestors, Terah had two wives. One wife was the mother of Nahor and Abraham. The second was the mother of Haran and Sarah. In the same way that birds and animals disperse their offspring, only the firstborn son of the first wife would inherit the father's territory. Other sons, like Abraham, would be sent away. Terah took his people, including Abraham, Sarah and Lot, from Ur to Haran, where they settled until Terah died. Nahor, the firstborn son of the first wife, then assumed control of Terah's considerable holdings in the territory designated as Padan Aram. Abraham was the sent-away son, living with his wife Sarah and their nephew Lot and their peoples. Abraham is then aged 75, Sarah 65. Under God's instruction, we see Sarah travel with the Abrahamic people down to Canaan with the promise of prolific progeny and land. After an episode in Egypt, when Sarah spent some time in Pharaoh's court, they returned to settle by the oaks of Mamre. In a culture that valued women for their ability to provide heirs and children, Sarah suffered greatly for her inability to provide Abraham with an heir. Genesis 15 recounts Abraham's vision in which the Lord promises him an heir from his own body. This promise did not specifically name Sarah, and the possibility that Sarah had begun the menopause might have prompted her to enlist her maidservant Hagar to provide her with offspring, a practice from Mesopotamia. This did not provide Sarah with the hoped-for family, because when Hagar conceives, she assumes superiority and loses respect for Sarah. Sarah puts the blame on Abraham, even though it was her own idea. Sarah's frustrations cause her to mistreat Hagar, who runs away. The Lord appears to Hagar and tells her to return to Sarah. We are not told what sort of reception she received, but we can assume that Abraham did not wish to lose his son, and at that time heir. Abraham was 86 years old, Sarah 76, and it was then 11 years after leaving Haran. What was the position of a second wife with a firstborn son? What would this mean for the inheritance of a son born to Sarah, who would then be the sent-away son? Can we blame Sarah for being frustrated or for losing hope, especially if her biological clock was ticking or had docked? Abraham was 99 years old and Ishmael was 13 before God again appears to Abraham. The covenant of circumcision is introduced, and God confirms his promise that Sarah will give birth to a son, who is to be called Isaac. Shortly after that, in Genesis 18, Abraham has 3 visitors, understood to be a pre-incarnate Jesus and 2 angels. After his guests had eaten, the Lord says he will return in about a year, by which time Sarah will have a son. He knows Sarah laughs to herself, having passed the age of childbearing. The Lord queried why she had laughed, asking, "Is anything too wonderful for the Lord?" Sarah fearfully denied laughing, but the Lord replied, "No, you did laugh." In Genesis 20, we see Sarah again taken as Abraham's sister, this time by Abimelech, the king of Gerar. I wonder if Sarah thought, "Here we go again." Did she have faith that she would again be protected by God? Or did she worry that, having laughed, God had changed his mind? In Genesis 21, we see that the Lord did indeed keep his promise, and Sarah bore Isaac to Abraham in his old age, when he was 100 years old. Sarah is concerned with Ishmael's relationship to Isaac. Sarah believed Isaac was Abraham's true heir, the firstborn son of the first wife, and Ishmael should be the sent-away son. God tells Abraham he will bless Ishmael, but he should listen to Sarah, as Abraham's offspring will be traced through Isaac. We see God's plan will not be thwarted. Having secured Isaac's position in the family, Sarah only features again when she dies at the age of 127 in Hebron. Abraham buys the cave of Machpelah for her burial. Sarah's heartache for not providing Abraham with an heir for so many years shows their love for each other, because Abraham, despite his desire for an heir, did not take a second wife until Sarah suggested it. And maybe the distress that caused Sarah made Abraham realise that it was not the way to go. Hagar had no other children. When Sarah takes things into her own hands, we see that not waiting for God to deliver his promise did not solve, but only caused future problems. Do we lose patience like Sarah? Do we blame our loved ones for things that are really our own fault? Do we trust too much in our own independence, taking things into our own hands, only turning to God when things go wrong? Yet Sarah did receive the miracle blessing of a son. Sarah was not wrong in her faith that Isaac was not to be the sent-away son. Can we recognise things that we should be sure of? God's delay is not denial. God's time is not our time, and only God knows the bigger picture. The Bible is not a history of perfect people, but of people who are human, with human failings, and who often fall away from God's path. He does not lose patience with us, just as he did not lose patience with Sarah. When we see the number of years Sarah had to wait, how can we complain? The question is, do we need to pray for patience more often? If you would like this GodPod community to pray for you, just add it to the comments below. We don't need name, address and phone number or a dissertation. Just a simple anonymous request that we can add to our prayers. God bless. See you next time.